Hello and welcome to Economics Live. Have you ever wondered why the word capitalism is so divisive? Some people think that capitalism is the answer to all the world's economic problems, while others think it is the cause of all the world's economic problems. So why the difference and who is right? My name is Ian Mason and I'm a tutor and student of economics with justice and practical philosophy in the School of Philosophy and Economic Science in London. Economics Live is a weekly broadcast from the school about economics with justice. So, what's the problem with capitalism? I think it's so divisive because the word has different meanings depending on who is using it. For some, it means the use of existing wealth like physical capital in the form of tools and equipment or financial capital to buy them with to create more wealth. For others, it means the use of an economic advantage like ownership of property, tools, or equipment, or just having more money than is needed for living to make as much profit as possible, often at other people's expense. And there are certainly examples of both of these. So let's go back to first principles. To begin with, the purpose of economic activity obviously is to create wealth. Wealth in this context means goods and services that are useful to human beings and valued by them. This is produced by human effort and creativity, usually referred to as labour. And labour is made more effective by three things. The first is other people, and it's long been recognised that people are much more productive if they combine their efforts with others. The second is location, because different places have different economic advantages, and people's collective efforts are concentrated where natural advantages are greatest. The third is tools and equipment, including anything built by human hands, from the most elaborate public infrastructure like transport hubs and communication networks, to the simplest things like a worker's tools or a postman's trolley or even a nurse's uniform. These last are all what is referred to as capital in economics. And this was the original meaning of the word capital: tools, equipment, infrastructure, things people have made to use for creating more wealth. But these things cost money and effort. So the term capitalism was applied to people who use their money to pay for the tools and equipment that other people need so that they can become more creative and productive wealth creators. But of course, the providers of capital expect a return, and that takes two forms. The first is ownership of the enterprises in which productive people work, called shareholdings, and the second is a share in what the enterprises produce, called profit or dividend. The purpose was to repay the advance of financial capital and also to compensate the financier or capitalist for taking the risk of advancing the finance in the first place. And here comes the problem, because the immediate effect of this arrangement is twofold. First, it means that working people cease to be the owners of the tools they work with. And secondly, they cease to be the owners of the wealth they produce. This makes people dependent, not interdependent in a healthy way, but subservient. Working people who are without their own capital really are dependent on people who have capital for employment. And they're also dependent on them for the tools and equipment they need to work with. The result is that instead of being recognized and rewarded as the cause of wealth by the productive work that they do, working people come to be regarded as a cost to be minimized as much as possible. And that obviously creates a conflict, which has been fought across the field of industrial relations for at least 2.5 centuries, probably longer. And of course, when people feel that they are nothing more than a cost to be minimized, they inevitably feel vulnerable, resentful, and hostile to the system that treats them that way. They feel exploited because they are being exploited. And the capitalism that causes, allows, and even requires that is seen as the cause of the problem. The biggest problem being that owners get richer while working people get comparatively poorer or even unemployed. So, can capitalism be benign? It's already been said that capital is an essential part of the productive process. And it's obvious that labour needs capital, so there must be a place for it. What's often overlooked is that capital needs labour to be effective at all. It really is a myth that capital employs labour. Capital in any real sense is created by labour and remains idle and useless without labour. The economic reality is that labour employs capital. That's why strikes are effective when all else fails. But why should all else fail? The sad fact is that the economics is simple and easy to understand. What complicates it is the politics of power and self-interest. And like all human characteristics, these are moderated, or can be, by human values, which we call ethics. The primary ethic for present purposes being justice. And of course, the primary feature of justice is the constant will to render to everyone their due. What is due to working people is the wealth that they produce, which can be received as wages. What is due to the providers of capital is a return commensurate with their actual contribution to wealth creation. As for anything left over after that, well, there's a third overlooked actor in the productive process, and that is government, local and national, which provides the whole context for productive economics. That too can be a major contributor to the creation of wealth. That always needs to be financed from the wealth being produced. Well, that's another story for another day. But the challenge of overcoming the power politics so that capitalism works for the common good and widest possible prosperity is here for us all to respond to every day. So the answer to the question is yes, capitalism can be made to work for the common good. All that is needed is a decent sense of justice, and that's all. So that's all from Economics Live for this year. We will be back with a new series in January. Please enjoy a happy, peaceful year end and a just and prosperous new year. And if you want to know more about the school and its courses, go to www.schoolofphilosophy.org. Farewell for now.